Mrs. Johnston here, and it's time for Knowledge and Social Studies. We're still working in Unit 6 on Native Americans. Lesson number 5 today. Our story is called Bear, Gull, and Crow. Boys and girls, if you look at the picture, do you know what type of food is shown? How many of you said clams? The picture shows a type of food called a clam. Clams are a type of shellfish that live in the ocean. Even today, clams are a common and popular food in New England. Clam digging and harvesting are important to the daily lives of the Native American tribe in New England. Clamming is still important to the culture and economy of present day New England. Have any of you ever eaten clams? Mrs. Johnston has never eaten a clam. This is a map of the United States. New England is the region in the northeastern part of the United States. You can see that I'm circling it up here. The story takes place in New England, which is now called the states of Rhode Island and Massachusetts. This area borders the Atlantic Ocean and has many waterways, but it also has forest a little farther inland. The tribe you are going to hear about today is the Wampanoag, and they lived in this area. I'm going to ask you a few questions to see if you were listening to the introduction of our knowledge and social studies lesson. Thumbs up if the answer is yes. Thumbs down if the answer is no. You will learn about the Wampanoag Tribe today. Did you give Mrs. Johnston a thumbs up? The Wampanoags lived in the northeastern region of the United States called New England. Were your thumbs up? Clams are a popular food in that part of the country. That too was thumbs up. All of the answers to our beginning of our story today was yes, was thumbs up. You are going to listen to the story about 3 characters named Gull, Bear, and Crow who lived near the Wampanoag tribe. Listen carefully to find out about a type of food the Wampanoag liked to eat. What do you see in this picture? How many of you said, I see a bear? Which one said, I see a seagull? And who noticed the crow? Did some of you also mention that there is water? This might be a lake or a river, and that there's grass and trees. Long ago, there were 3 animal friends who lived in a land of wild forest, green fields, and shining waters. Gull made her home in the marsh grass near the bay. A gull is a type of bird. Bear lived in a cave deep in the woods, and Crow had a nest in an oak tree at the edge of a garden. Bear, Gull, and Crow often got together to visit and chat. One of the many things they talked about was the upright walker beings who lived nearby. What do you think an upright walker is? How many of you said humans, people, us? An upright walker is a human, like you and me. These beings called themselves the Wampanoags, but the animals called them upright walkers because they walked upright on two legs all the time and never flew. The Wampanoag are another Native American tribe. The upright walkers lived in houses they called Wetu, built from bent saplings and tree bark. They could make they could make fire just as lightning did when it struck a tree. They grew corn from kernels planted in small earth hills. These kernels were sweet, crunchy nuggets that Crow loved to steal. They fished in the bays using nets, spears, hooks, and lines. The upright walkers also hunted in the forest with bows and arrows. So Bear was always very careful to keep his distance. One day, Gull said to Bear and Crow, "Today I saw some upright walkers waiting in the bay." In this sentence, the word saw means that Gull used his eyes and his sense of vision. There was a man and a boy. They lifted many smooth rocks from the water and carried them into the forest. They said the rocks were for the Wampanoag. I wonder what an Wampanoag is. Crow thought hard for a minute. An Wampanoag must be an animal, he said. An animal that eats rocks? Can there be an animal bigger than I am? Said Bear. I want to see this animal. Tomorrow I will go and spy on the Wampanoag. Do you think Crow and Bear are right? Is an Wampanoag an animal? Did you say yes or did you say no? Let's listen to find out. The next day, Bear found the pile of stones. He hid behind the trees and waited. Before long, the upright walkers came. They dug a very shallow hole in the ground. Then they carefully laid the rocks into it and went away. Bear waited and waited, but the Wampanoag did not come to eat the rocks. Tired of waiting, Bear went to tell Gull and Crow what had happened. The upright walkers dug a hole and filled it with rocks, but the Wampanoag did not come. "Leave it to me," said Crow. "Tomorrow I will figure out what is going on." The next day, Crow perched in a tree near the rock pit. Soon the upright walkers returned. They collected lots of dry wood and piled it next to the pit. Crow flew hurriedly to find Bear and Gull. The upright walkers collected wood. They are going to build a wetu for the Wampanoag, said Crow. The Wampanoag will live in our forest in its own wooden house. Do you think Crow is right? Are they building a wetu? Did you say yes? Did you say no? Let's read on to find out. He thought for a moment, but what if it is not a friendly Wampanoag? Bear and Gull looked worried. The next morning at sunrise, as Gull was winging over the bay, she saw the upright walker man and boy on the beach. There was a girl with them, too. Low tide had covered some wet sand that had been underwater at high tide. The upright walkers were looking for little holes in the wet sand. From time to time, water shot up from these holes. They were the breathing holes of soft-shelled clams that lived under the sand. Gull watched as the upright walkers dug the clams out with long sticks. These are the holes. You can see the water coming up from the small hole. Some clams spit water even after they were dug up. Soon the upright walkers had filled a large basket with the clams. They waded into the shallow water and filled another basket with larger clams. Later on, Gull told Bear excitedly, the upright walkers collected many clams. They said they were glad to have found so many clams for their Wampanoag. I hope the Wampanoag does not eat up all the clams and fish in the bay. Gull went on. Next, those upright walkers gathered the rockweed that grows on the rocks in the shallow water. Rockweed is a type of greenish brown, rubbery seaweed that grows on the rocks in coastal areas. The Wampanoag is going to eat the rockweed too, said Bear. What will it decide to eat next? Bear looked around. Where is Crow? Wasn't he supposed to meet us here? Do you think the Wampanoags eat crows? No sooner had Bear spoken than he saw a crow flying toward them. I saw the upright walkers in the cornfield, exclaimed Crow. They picked baskets full of corn. They said it was for the Wampanoag today. The Wampanoag is coming today? Bear, Crow, and Gull looked at one another. Let's go, said Bear, and lickety-split, off they set for the rock pit. There they hid among the trees. Before long, some upright walkers started to gather. Then more and more came. There were men, women, and children, big and small, old and young. The upright walkers took the dry wood from its pile and laid it over the stones. One man started the wood burning. Others stayed by the fire and kept it going. They raked the burning wood so the hot ashes fell into the cracks between the rocks. Soon ashes covered the rocks, heating them up. The upright walkers laid rockweed over the ashes. Steam rising from the damp rockweed gave off a sharp smell of salt. The upright walkers placed heaps of clams on top of the rockweed, together with lobsters, corn, and potatoes. When all the food was loaded on, they covered it with more rockweed. Bear, crow, and gull sniffed the mouth-watering aromas of the food cooking. Now everyone fell silent as the very old upright walker stepped forward and said a prayer to the Great Spirit. He thanked the Great Spirit for the animals, plants, rocks, and trees. The upright walker joined hands in a circle and stood in silence. Then, as a flute and drums sounded, the upright walkers began to dance. When the dancing had ended, the upright walker spoke again. "This is a fine day for our Wampanoag." The Wampanoag is a celebration, a time for our people to come together, to give thanks to the Great Spirit, and to feast on delicious food. Feast means to eat a big meal. Can you guess what the Wampanoag is yet? Is it an animal? So let the feasting begin. The rockweed covering was lifted off, and the upright walkers began to load their bowls with food. Bear, gull, and crow looked at one another. An Wampanoag was not a huge, rock-eating animal with big teeth after all. An Wampanoag was a celebration where the upright walkers had a clam bake feast, a mouth-watering, nose-tickling feast. How they wished they could leap out from their hiding place and join in. But what would the upright walkers think of having uninvited guests? Just then a girl walked toward their hiding place, carrying a big bowl piled high with food. It was the girl that Gull had seen digging in the sand for clams. The girl laid the bowl on the ground before running back to join the other upright walkers. She called out, "To the birds and animals who share the forests and the bay with us, Wampanoags, may you enjoy sharing our Wampanoag, our clam bake feast." And that is just what Bear, Gull, and Crow did. This story tells about a clam bake feast. A clam bake is only held in special settings or places. What is the setting of this story? Did you say by the sea? Who are the characters in this story? Bear, Gull, Crow, the upright walkers are the characters in our story. Who were the upright walkers? Did you say humans? The upright walkers were humans. What is the name of the Native American tribe that the animals called upright walkers? Did you say Wampanoag or something close to it? The name of the tribe is the Wampanoag. That is a hard name to pronounce. What do Bear, Gull, and Crow think an Wampanoag is when they first hear the word? You're right. They thought it was a beast or an animal. What is an omphanog? Did you say an omphanog is a clam bake feast? Describe how the upright walkers or wampanoag prepare for the omphanog or clam bake. Did you say first they dig a hole and fill it with stones? Then they gathered firewood? Next, they gathered rockweed and clams? After that, they cooked it? And then finally, or lastly, they ate the food. Describe what the upright walkers or wampanoag do at the omphanog. How many of you said eat clams? But did you also remember that they dance, they thank the Great Spirit, and they celebrate? I hope you enjoyed our story today that Bear, Gull, and Crow told about our Native American tribe, the Wampanoag.